Hello, boys and girls. It's me again. I'd like to read to you another story. I've moved into different rooms. Oh, I bet you can see my friends. There's my friend. I'm sorry. Oh, my two pals are going to be listening too. Okay, so let's talk. The Tooth Fairy. One day, Thomas went to tea at Grandma's. Everything was delicious, except for her special currant cakes, which were just like lumps of rocks. As he bit into one, his wobbly tooth came out. "Lucky Thomas," said Grandma. "Take it home and put it under your pillow for the Tooth Fairy." Grandma went into the kitchen, and Thomas hid the rest of his cake in her droopy potted plants, as usual. That night, Thomas put his tooth under his pillow and went to sleep. The next morning, his tooth was gone, and there was a shiny new coin instead. Thomas was very pleased. Now he had nearly enough money to buy a new football. I don't want a football. The next week, Thomas found another wobbly tooth. Grandma don't have wobbly teeth right now. He wiggled and jiggled it, but it wouldn't budge. So he went to see his grandma again. He bravely bit into one of her cakes. Out came the tooth. Thomas really wanted to know what the Tooth Fairy was going to do with his tooth. So that night, he left a note on his pillow. "Dear Tooth Fairy, I have a tooth for you. If you wake me up, you can have it. Love, Thomas." Later that night, he woke to see a fairy creature on his pillow. "Hello," said Thomas. "If you don't mind me asking, why do you want my tooth?" There's Thomas asking the Tooth Fairy. I guess he wants answer to his question. The Tooth Fairy smiled. "Come with me," she said, pointing a small remote control at Thomas. Whoa! Thomas was standing in a huge room that sparkled and shone. In the middle of the room was a big machine. At one end, a bucket full of teeth was being poured into a funnel. From the other came a fine sparkling powder. From the other came that. There's the powder machine. See, it came down here. It fell into a conveyor belt and was dropped onto little socks. Oh, I'm sorry. Little sacks, little bags. Hundreds of fairies were busy everywhere. "Your tooth will go to the fairy factory," said the Tooth Fairy. "We use children's teeth to make fairy dust. It's the secret ingredient in lots of our spells. Teeth are very valuable to fairies. That's why we pay you." Thomas gazed in amazement. "I have to take tonight's teeth to the stores," said the fairy. "But since you're here, I'll grant you 3 wishes." Thomas could hardly believe his luck. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "I wish I could buy my new football. I wish that Grandma's cakes were light and fluffy. And I wish that her potted plant would get better." This is Thomas and the fairy. Before he could finish speaking, the fairy factory had vanished, and he was back in bed holding a shiny coin. He emptied his piggy bank. Now there was enough for a new football. He took it to Grandma the next week when he went for tea. "Very nice, dear," said Grandma, as he brought in some currant cakes, fresh from the oven. Thomas took a big bite. It was soft and crumbly and full of big juicy currants, which are kind of like raisins, very tasty and sweet. "These are great, Grandma," he said. "You tuck it in while I water my potted plant." And Grandma said, "It's growing so well. See, the plant looks wonderful." So the end of the story is that he got his wishes, he got his coin, he got a delicious cake with currants that were lovely, and she kept her plant alive. Love you, babies. Hope you like the story. Have a good evening. Love you.